I'm Ashley Callahan with Pureinfluencer, joined by Ron Morrison, our founder. I was reading an article where the CEO, Brian DeBoer of Lithia, the largest dealer group in the country, got on his Q1's earning call telling Wall Street that Lithia is officially going to do more with less. They're going to combine jobs, centralize back office, one GM running multiple stores. And it sounded really familiar to me. And so I wanted to have a conversation with Ron about this because we've been talking about this with dealers for a long time and it sounded wildly familiar.
Mhm.
So just kind of want to unpack everything that they were saying about doing more with less.
Mhm.
So let's start there, Ron. Like, what is something a dealer can do today to start doing more with less? Where do we fit in that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think just the first thing a dealer could do is ask themselves that particular question, right? So kudos to Brian and the team at Lithia for saying, hey, how do we do more with less? That's a really profound angle to take. And then from a dealership perspective, objectives, right? Hey, we want to sell more, we want to service more, we want to drive more F&I, we want to acquire more cars, all those sorts of things. You look at each of those, I would say, and then you ask that question again, right? How do we do more with less? So, for example, Pureinfluencer, one of the things we advocate for our clients with respect to doing more with less is spend less money on digital marketing tools, spend less money on advertising, and recognize that for the most part, all the stores across the country, shoreboard to shoreboard, have more quality traffic on their website from an organic standpoint, from a direct standpoint, than they know what to do with, right? There's not a dealership, certainly not a Lithia store, that is lacking for quality traffic, right? And so, how do you do more with that? Well, you focus then and say, all right, we've got all this traffic. We don't want to spend all this money to do more. Let's do less, and let's focus on capitalizing on the opportunities of traffic that we already have. How can we convert more of those visitors that we have on our website that are there organically, that are there from our Lithia brand, that are there for because of the inventory that we have on our website? How do we convert more of those visitors into quality opportunities for our sales team, right? Rather than how do we spend more money to drive more of those opportunities? So I think that's one way that a dealership could say, hey, this is how we do more with less. Another way would be, a very focused and committed effort into the service line, right? Hey, we've got all of these customers that are there already, and let's focus on acquiring as many vehicles, right, that we can from the service drive. But more importantly, let's focus on continuing to grow those relationships and maintain those relationships with those customers, ensuring that those customers maybe certainly sell their car to us and then buy the next vehicle from us, right? Being Lithia or whoever, whatever dealer group it is. And that's another way that you can do more with less because those opportunities are already there, right? And so it's not like we need to go find and farm those opportunities or hunt for those opportunities, rather, they're already there. And so I think those two perspectives from what we do at Pureinfluencer would be one simple way to say, this is how we can do more with less. Hope that makes sense.
It's interesting, Ron, you're talking about website traffic, and I'm floored by that $739 figure that everyone's been sharing that dealers spent in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the conversations I'm having with dealers today, is they're saying to me, hey, Ashley, like, I know that number's high intuitively. I know that that's expensive, but I don't know what to do different. This is what we've always done. But I know my traffic isn't really changing. My conversions are down. What is it that I should be doing different? And that seems to be a really big challenge for a dealer today is what plays should I be making? What can I control? What's something simple I can do that doesn't drive that number even higher in 2026?
Yeah. Yeah. 739 a copy. And by the way, whether it's direct spend from a dealer or co-op funds or a collection of other funds that NADA attributed that number, right? Because oftentimes, like you, I'll talk to stores and I'll say, hey, you've seen the number, right? 739. And a GM rightfully says, that's ridiculous. My number is 400, or my number is 220, or my number is 600, whatever that is, right? And so we don't necessarily know all of the methods that NADA used to get to that number, right? That's their number. And NADA is an incredibly credible source, if you ask me. But I don't think 739 is high. I think it's flipping egregious. It's just absolutely ridiculous. What's worse is not the number. The 739 actually, and I'll get to your question here, but the 739 is not the number. What dealers need to do, and maybe you and I should like put a graphic out there this week on LinkedIn, is recognize that in the last 10 years, that number has continued to grow. In the last 15 years, that number is every year it's larger, every single year. But very few dealers can say, hey, you know what? My market share is growing relevant to, at the same pace that the cost per unit is growing. So look, marketing companies, marketing vendors, they need to really take an introspective look at what we're doing here. We brought tools to the industry, be that CRM tools, digital marketing strategies, VLAs, all these different things we brought to the industry. And we told the dealer, or they told the dealer, marketing vendors told the dealer, hey, this is going to help you be more efficient. This is going to help you do more with less. Mm-hmm. And as we look at that number from NADA, that is completely false, right? So the first thing the dealer needs to say is, no, it's not high, it's egregious, it's ridiculous. And what can I do to bring that number down? Well, the first thing you do is you look at all of the sources that you're using to drive advertising revenue, right? Whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's CTV, whatever that is, right? And then you say, listen, I need to ensure that those sources that I'm spending money on are working for what I expect them to do. And this isn't hard, by the way. It's nonsensical to still believe that we want to attribute some portion of sale attribution at a dealership to Google and to a second click and a first click and Facebook and all that soup of attribution. That's not reasonable. What you do is you say, listen, I'm spending X, let's say, for example, on Facebook, not to pick on a particular sources. Let's talk about that. I'm spending $3,500 a month on Facebook. And I see that my CRM tool and other analytic tools that I use tell me that I get X number of leads from Facebook. And I attribute those, or I can connect the dots to some sales. I can do that. If I push my marketing director or my internet director or my marketing company hard enough, they'll jump in the DMS and connect the dots for me. Okay, cool. Well, I'm spending $3,500 a month. I'm going to apply the scientific method, and I'm going to go to $3,000. And I'm going to see if I pulled $500 away, did I in fact lose that Facebook traffic that I was having, those Facebook leads? Yes or no? And I'm going to measure it previous month, previous year, and previous quarter. And if I've lost nothing, then I'm going to go through that exercise again, not only with Facebook and go from $3,000 now to $2,500, but I'm going to do that with the other sources, which, by the way, here comes a shameless plug. Our tool, right? Our My Traffic tool does that for our dealers today. It literally says, hey, let's back these different sources down, and the dealer can see in real time, did that hurt their overall organic traffic, paid traffic, or that particular source? Did it really reduce leads, etc.? And the beautiful thing about paid search that we're talking about here, Ashley, is it's unlike what dealers were doing years ago with traditional marketing. Years ago, a dealer said, hey, listen, if I'm going to pull back from either television, radio, or print, I may not see that drop in traffic or sales or service this month, but 60, 90, 120 days from now, man, it's going to hurt. And then I have to restart that all over again. So I don't want to do that. Well, today in the digital world, nonsensical. You can literally pull it back today and use tools, whether it's GA4 or other tools or SEMrush or our tool and see if in fact you affected your overall organic and quality traffic or your paid traffic or your leads. You can see that almost in real time, day to day. So we as you know, we have a tool that's called an event marker where it's essentially a red flag in the sand, right? So somebody on Lithia can say, hey, we're going to back down this budget. We're going to put a flag in the sand and we're going to watch that trend line. And if that trend line of, you name it, overall traffic, direct traffic, organic traffic, you name it, if that trend line begins to drop, I'm going to go put that budget back. But if that trend line does not drop, as in the case with many, many, many of our stores, as you know, then what you've done is now you're doing more with less. You've taken that $500 or $1,000 savings and you put it into what I like to call hip national, right? You keep it in the bank. You keep it as profitability for your store. Or my personal favorite at a dealership to do more with less is you take those marketing dollars that you found that aren't effective, that were either ineffective campaigns or overspend, and you take those dollars and you redirect them toward acquisition, because inventory is the number one driver of traffic, quality traffic, right? So inventory begets traffic. So you redirect those dollars to inventory, to people, process, and training, to facilities. Those are the things that matter most, and they're extremely measurable as well. So hopefully that answers that question.
It's interesting. You connected some dots for me, Ron, because when I think about, so specifically in that Lithia, just speaking to that group, they're not the only ones, right? That are peeling back on some of their things and wanting to do more with less. But I think about, the GMs, they're saying that on average, the GMs are managing 1.4 stores, right? Mm-hmm. So this really comes down to the scarcity of time and bandwidth. And what's interesting to me is what you're speaking to is, hey, Mr. Dealer, this isn't just about spending less in marketing. This is about finding those dollars to be able to go spend elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And that is huge in this environment where they're looking for ways to really maximize their budget across all departments. Mm-hmm. One of the things I want to speak to is that 1.4 stores per general manager. I'm a GM. It's mm-hmm. hard enough. It can be challenging enough to run one store. Now, on average, their GMs are running more stores. So what are some of the ways that we help our operators to manage more efficiently, more effectively? How is our tool making that simpler for them?
Mm-hmm. Enterprise visibility. So we provide a tool, for example, let's say, Ashley, you're responsible for 1.4. Let's say you're responsible for 2 stores. Rather than querying other people or querying GA4 or querying your CRM tool multiple times to identify what's happening at store A versus store B, not only do we provide you or our stores with an enterprise view that allows me to see, for example, if I wanted to see how, if I was a GM at a store or 2 stores rather, and I wanted to see how my Google budget is performing, a very specific campaign, let's say, I want to see how that campaign is performing for store A and store B. Well, we provide a tool that allows you to compare those trend lines together, to look at them visually with one, rather than a Google Analytics setup, right? A tool that was designed specifically for a dealer. So in that way, a dealer can have a more holistic view or enterprise view, if you will, of various things. And it doesn't necessarily need to be paid traffic. It could be, hey, we're changing our website vendors, right? Or we're changing features on our website, or we're going to a one price strategy, or anything that impacts how customers get to our store digitally and or their experience digitally, anything that impacts that. You can see that globally. So now, as a GM, you have more time, right? We're freeing you up with more time, and then also with alerts. And I know alerts sound sort of simplistic, but it's very simple for me, for example, as a GM, to say, you know what, I just need to know when any of my stores that I'm responsible for has a 1, 2, 5, 7, whatever enough percentage drop in XYZ traffic, or I got to manage a couple stores, I really like this vendor that we're going to bring on. I learned about him at a 20 group, or my new GM said, hey, this vendor did great with them. I want to bring that vendor in and say, hey, listen, I'm going to put a flag in the sand the day we turn you on. And your commitment to me, Mr. Vendor, is you're telling me we're going to either A, sell more cars, or have the phone ring more often, or we're going to have more leads on whatever particular inventory. Guess what? My tool is going to let me know if you're right. My tool is going to tell me that, hey, you know what? Traffic is increasing, or that unit's increasing, or acquiring more cars here. My tool is going to inform me. Or the inverse. Glad to sign up. I'm signing up for you. Here's your check. Let's get rolling. My tool is going to let me know if everything stays flat or falls. So Mr. Vendor, we can be very transparent, and it's going to free me up with a lot of time. I don't have to go and talk to my team or go and inspect whether what I expected to happen is happening. So because our tool is designed to inform managers, it helps them do more with less.
When I was reading this article about Lithia, they're not the first to announce these kinds of changes. Of course, Group 1 made the announcement. A lot of the larger groups are going with this motion. And one of the things that happens with their operators is their operators also, not only do they literally physically have multiple buildings to be managing, but a geographical space that's very hard to have visibility into. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult. And to your point about GA4 and some of the other measurement tools, they all serve a place in every business, from Joe's Plumbing to Coca-Cola. Uh-huh. Our tool was designed specifically with a dealer in mind, for a dealer to be able to see it in real time. Mm-hmm. What are some of the ways that a dealer can use our now enhanced analytics to have that geographical scope, to really take control of what's happening with their market outside those four walls?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I've been GA certified for a long time, like many, many people who are probably watching this, right? And we all know that we can get some information geographically in terms of the impact of our campaigns, the impact of our sales, and those sorts of things. Oftentimes, that information comes in the form of a report, by way of zip codes, or by way of regions, or by way of city names, and those sorts of things. And sometimes we can see them visually in a map. Well, another shameless plug here coming. What we did was we built a tool that incorporates all of the types of traffic that a dealer has on its website. So as you know, we've always been able to see in real time. We and our tool has been able to see in real time what people do on the website, right? What are visitors doing? And as you know, Ashley, you've been with us a long time, with the tens of millions of visitors that we have, there's no single visitor, there's no two visitors that behave the same, right, on the website. So knowing what they do is critical. Knowing where they do it is critical. Knowing when they do it is critical. So I can look, for example, with our tools, I can look at a region, let's say all of the Western Shoreboard, and I can look at all my stores in the Western Shoreboard, for example, and I can see a time lapse. Let's say I want to go and see, hey, we just turned on Facebook, or we ran this ad, or we ran this campaign, and I want to see a time lapse of all the visitors that came to our website. Not just how many we had, but I want to visually see where they're coming from. And then maybe I want to look at that from an organic perspective. Maybe I want to look at it from direct traffic, from paid traffic. Maybe I want to look at it by types of inventory. Maybe I want to see, hey, how many people, humans, visited our site from where, and I want to see that happen in a movie, if you will, in a time lapse, from any time period I choose. I want to see what happened this week, yesterday, this entire year, right? And so now, if I'm responsible for a region, I can look at stuff and say, wait a minute, why is all that spend happening over there? Why is all that traffic happening there? Or why isn't it happening? So rather than just numeric values, we bring to a dealership or a manager, if you will, somebody who wants to do more with less, real quality visual information that allows them to make real-time decisions to help them specifically reduce their ad spend. I want to talk about that before you ask me the next question. Make no bones about it. You've probably read, Ashley, some of my LinkedIn posts years ago. I think most people who watch my posts understand what I'm talking about when I say, hey, we need, or at least they know that I talk often about pulling back on ad spend. And let me tell you why. I sold a lot of paid search over the years, a lot, right? I sold to tier 1, tier 2. I worked for some marketing companies that's all we did. I also sold paid search before Google was around. From a red binder, I sold Alta Vista and Yahoo, right? And I flipped through this binder, and I'll tell you a story about Kevin Sosinski, Fireside Dodge, Modesto. I'm flipping through this binder, right? And I'm telling him and his managers at the time, this is pre-2000, and I'm telling them how they can advertise and promote their vehicles and their inventory on the internet. I'm literally telling them what the Alta Vista and Yahoo sales rep taught me how to tell them. They're the ones who gave me the binder. They're the ones who told me florists, pizza parlors, muffler shops were advertising online in addition to the phone book and the newspaper, right? So that's what I did with this binder, right? And dealers said, yes, that makes sense. And then they did that for years. And then Google, etc. You know what's funny, Ash? There wasn't a dealer 18, 19 years ago that looked at a Alta Vista message from me or a Google ad rep from somebody else. There wasn't a dealer that said, hey, this is what other dealers are doing. What they saw was other industries were doing. There was never evidence that, hey, you're not doing what other dealers are doing on the internet, so you should. It was always, you're not doing what other industries are doing, so you should. Very similar, right, to what happened with digital retailing, right? Consumers like the convenience of just shopping online, while dealers bought that hook, line, and sinker. That's not what the issue was. Customers didn't want to have to deal with the friction in the store. And all we did was we used the digital retailing tool to move the friction in the store to the friction in their living room or their bedroom. This is crazy. But it's a repetitive thing that we do. And so what I want to be clear on is when I say we need to pull back in digital marketing and do more with less, it's because that not only that $739 is egregious, but dealers, well, you know, Ashley, we help dealers save oftentimes 20, 30, 40 grand a month, and they don't skip a beat. Why? Because there's more organic and direct traffic than you'll ever need as a dealer. For crying out loud, you have some of the most powerful brands on the planet, name it. Nissan, Honda, Kia, Toyota. I mean, those customers want to buy a vehicle and they're going to come to your store whether you like it or not. Google told us so, right? In 2016, in the online shopper study, Google said the average shopper, 90 days online, 13.3 hours. I'm sorry, 90 days physically, 13.3 hours online, visiting 5.7 different franchise dealerships. They told us in not so direct language that if you're the first visitor that a customer, if you're the first store that a customer visits, or you're the last store that they visit, there's no advantage. So if they're going to visit you anyway, and there's no advantage, the thing to do, to your initial question, for a dealer is to say, let me begin to inspect if my advertising spend is correlating to what the industry was going to do anyway, shoppers, or is it causing people to come to my store? I think that's where dealers really need to ask that question. Is my spend around correlation, or is my spend about causation? We have a tool, as you know, that measures that impeccably. And there are many tools that a dealer can use to do that. I will say that if 739 is egregious, what is more egregious is a GM that won't ask that question, or a dealer principal who won't ask that question. Is my spend causation or correlation? I need to know, because I want to do more with less.
I feel like we can end it on that. I feel like there's so much more to unpack, but bottom line is that there's when you spoke about the organic traffic, one of the things that we know is it's true. The dealers, the best traffic on their site is organic. At Pureinfluencer, we are there and waiting for those shoppers on their site that are throwing all the buying signals that they otherwise wouldn't even know existed. And that's what I love that we help dealers with. We allow dealers simplicity and control over what's already there, things that they've already done. So they don't even have to do less per se. It's just that we're going to get them more from what's there. And I'm excited. I think that this kind of leads me to thinking I'd love to grab one of our partners, either from Mercado or one of the other dealer groups that we work with, and just kind of dig into this a little bit more with them. So we'll stay tuned for that next time.